morning and welcome to reading. I apologize for the slight delay. I had to work through some technical difficulties, but we're here for our first live reading lesson. What we're going to be doing today is taking a look at our text that we've been reading for a couple of days, and we're going to be answering some questions about it. And so in Classroom, you'll see that you have a document and a Google Doc that you can type in answers. And so we're going to take a look at those questions first, and then we're going to get into the text and find those answers and make sure that our answers are text-dependent questions or text-dependent answers. So we're citing our source as we go. Okay? And so we're going to be answering questions using text evidence. So let's get started. Now, let's see if this is going to work for me here. I have my tablet here, but let me make sure that everything is going to work the way I want it to work. Okay, let's see if I get clicking, if things start to pop up. Oh goodness, see, this is what I was dealing with before. Good old screen stream. Dropped here. So let me try again. Yay, okay. So if you don't have your book, so your book that we're using is the Conflicts That Shaped a Nation, this book. So if you don't have it, I want to remind you that you have that digital copy in Clever. And so I actually didn't open the book up yet in Clever because I wanted to show you what you would do. You've seen this screen before. You're going to click on grade 5. We are on unit 7, so if you click on unit 7, it's going to filter out the books that we don't need. And then I'm going to scroll down and find the ebook. And so I'm going to open that up. Okay, so if you forgot how to do that, there you go. All right, and we're looking at pages 6 through 9. I'm going to say no. All right, so I'm going to skip to page 6. And we are ready to go. So now I'm going to look at our first question. It said, there's only 5. So the first question says, according to paragraph 1, what are the 13 colonies? So that means I'm going to need to look at paragraph 1. I'm going to see if I could zoom for us. There we go. So I only really need to look at paragraph 1. Okay, so let me get ready. So I'm looking for what are the 13 colonies. So I need to find that evidence. I'm going to underline a couple details, but then I'm going to have to formulate that into a response. So I'm going to reread paragraph 1 and underline some things that might be helpful. For 150 years, Great Britain's 13 American colonies, oh, there's the words, Great Britain's 13 American colonies, had time to grow and change. More than 3,000 miles of ocean separated those colonies from the mother country. The mother country is England. 3,000 miles of ocean separated England from the colonies because the colonies are a part of where our country is, right? And so there's a big ocean called the Atlantic Ocean that separates us. By the mid-1700s, the colonists still thought of themselves as British citizens. So they were still technically part of England, just a different location. And so they were considered, back then, British citizens. But they also considered themselves as Virginians, New Yorkers, Pennsylvanians, Georgians, all part of their colonial identity, which means those were what we call now states. Those were the states that they were in. And they also consider themselves as Americans, right? So all of these names and titles for them. So then now if I think about how would I use that evidence in my response, right? So I'm going to, oops. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to move this box out of the way. Okay, so then I'm going to make sure that I answer this. And now if I just put they were people or they were, and I just don't have any citing of sources, then I'm not going to get full credit for the answer. So I need to make sure that I'm citing the source, which is this text. And there's different ways we can do that we've practiced. We can cite it by saying, according to the text, according to paragraph 1, from the sources I know. There's different ways that we've done citing of the text. And so we know that the 13 colonies, based on this, were here on this continent, not necessarily attached to England. And we know that because it says that there are 3,000 miles of ocean separating the two lands. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying according to, and I'm going to choose to use paragraph 1, because that's also how it's asked. I could also say according to page 6. That's another way I can say it. The 13 colonies were, I'm going to use this where it says 3,000 miles of ocean separated those colonies from the mother country. But I'm going to use it in my own words, but I've already cited the source, so I'm safe there. So the 13 colonies were what we now call the states, what we now include, the 13 colonies were what we now call the states. I'll just leave it at that for now. They were 3,000 miles away from the mother country, which is what it says in that text, which was England. So being specific of what we already know about that. And so just basically explaining that those were the states that we started with as a country. And so if I look at my response, have I cited the source? According to paragraph 1. Have I used text evidence? I did. I mentioned the mother country and the 3,000 miles away. And I've answered the question. Did I explain what they were? I did, right? Then we move on to number 2. And then it tells us why were the colonists angry? And then it tells us where to find the answer. It doesn't always tell you, but this time it does. So use page 7, which is the other page, to support your answer. Now, I'm not going to fully give you this response of this answer, but I will say that you already know some of this because we have done some research and readings of other sources too about the things that were making the colonists angry and made them rebel. So on page 7, the very top has a heading and it says anger builds. Why were they angry, right? So then you're going to be able to use this page to explain why they were angry. Make sure you use text evidence. This one, there might be multiple things. When I went through my text, I actually labeled them by annotating with like a number 1. I'm going to show you what I mean by that to get you started on that question and finding evidence because there is more than one piece of evidence you could use. So let me zoom out or scoot over a little bit here. Let's see if it'll let me. May not. I feel like it's frozen. Maybe I have something on. Let me see. And it's frozen. Of course. Oh, yay. I don't know what it's doing. Okay, I'll just read it out loud and I'll mention something that I think might be helpful for you as you answer number 2. So anger builds. I'm going to read that first paragraph. There's one little piece in there I would use. There's also additional things you could use from paragraph 4. So let me just read paragraph 3. All of this change in the 1760s after the French and Indian War. Defending the colonies in that war had cost the British a great deal. So war is expensive. You have to pay for weapons. You have to pay for the people. You have to pay for a lot. And when things don't go so well, you're spending a lot of time and money on paying for those resources. So because they had this other war, the British Parliament decided that the colonies should help pay for these bills. So they wanted help paying for all of this. And they made the decision without any input from the colonists. So they did this without even getting any information or feedback or anything. Unlike the British citizens, the American colonists had no representatives in Parliament. So they had no one to represent the colonies when they were actually having those important meetings to discuss how they were going to pay for it. They had no chance to vote on the taxation the British decided to impose on the colonies. And we've talked about what taxing is. Taxing is what we pay, because we do taxes now too, what we pay as American citizens to help pay for the roads, for teachers, for schools, for hospitals, all of those things that we as humans need. Well, the government is what pays for that, but they get the money from taxes. And so during this time, England was the one needing the money to fund their government, to fund all of their things, because they ran out of money from that war that they had. And this is the war separate from the American Revolution War. Okay, so then they started to tax them on certain things. Some things you've already heard about, like the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act. Those are from other sources we've read, but it's also mentioned in paragraph 4. So in paragraph 3, the sentence that I feel like might be really helpful in your response, what made them the most mad, I would say, is a sentence that says, but they made that decision without any input from the colonists. So I would feel like, well, you're not asking me my opinion or thought at all, but then you're requiring that I pay. And so I feel like that sentence for me would be something I might use in my response. And there's more in paragraph 4 when there's more details about Stamp Act and the actual taxes they actually imposed. So there's a head start for number 2. Number 3 says, according to paragraph 9, what happened when the American colonists, with the American colonists and the British. So if I look at paragraph 9, which is on page 8, the very end, what's actually happening? This is where the war starts. So reread paragraph 9. Question number 4 says, explain what Patrick Henry means in paragraph 12 when he says, give me liberty or give me death. That question is probably my favorite question out of all of these, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your response. That is a very famous quote, give me liberty or give me death. So I want to see what you think about that quote. Rereading it in paragraph 12, you might need to reread it a couple of times to try to understand it, maybe get some support from a parent to know what it means, but that specific sentence is a very famous one that I really like to see what you think. Question 5, which is the last one, how does the American Revolution end? Use evidence from page 9 to support your answer. And so we also, just so you know how it ended from the journal entry that we read. So if you wanted to include information from there, totally okay with that too. But you would also use evidence from this current text as well. Okay. Number 4 is my favorite. I can't wait to read that one. All right. Whew. So to wrap up, I want to say thank you for those who are joining me. I can already tell that it's going to, oh, that's not even helpful. Get rid of that. I can tell that this is going to work out better than our other practices, so I'm looking forward to reading your responses. I didn't look at the comment box at all. Let me quickly look at that. Thank you, Freddie, for getting the work done. Good morning, Emily, again. Good morning, Brian. Thank you for joining me. Number 4, there's a question about, could there also be an opinion? I would love to hear an opinion too. I would say that in text evidence, that question would be more about, can you understand what it means and what do you think it means? So I would say, Brian, yes, there would be some opinion in there too. But you might cite the source by saying, according to paragraph 12, he says, give me liberty or give me death, and then be able to tell me more about what you think that means. So at least citing it because it's there, and then tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Okay. Let me make sure. Miss you all. Okay. All right. So I look forward to your responses. Let me know if you need help. Make a Flipgrid video. Let me know, and I can respond if you need me. All right. Bye, guys.